is criticized for a lot of things that he doesn't do, and I believe that Dick Cheney is an honorable individual, and I think the President of the United States depends a great deal upon him. But I would like to also quickly point out, since I'm not going to get a chance, is that I don't want to leave this audience. No, when you says that nobody supports Senator Grassley's SES-CHIP program, to have the press, because I know how the press acts, that the press will come back, all Republicans are against poor children and health care for them. That is not what we said.
It's not what I said either, but go ahead.
We said that what we want to do is we want to change SES-CHIP on a competitive model against the Democrats. And another
But you're not with Senator Grassley, and I want to move on to this, stay on this subject.
I want to make that point.
Okay, I just want to stay on this subject. Mayor Giuliani.
I think the Vice President of the United States, that office has to be worked out with the President. And the thing that's the clearest about it, now that we're at war, and we have this Islamic terrorist war against us, and we have this aggressive enemy that's already attacked us here in the United States twice, is that a Vice President has to be just as capable, just as ready to take over that office, literally on a moment's notice. And that should be the major qualification. And then it should be in the discretion of the President and the Vice President to decide on what kind of responsibilities they should have.
But would you like to have a Vice President like Vice President Cheney with that wide range of portfolio?
I worked in the Reagan administration. I thought the division of responsibilities between President Reagan and Vice President Bush was a good one. I thought it was a really comfortable one. I mean, I'm real clear on the fact that George W. Bush is the President of the United States. He's the only one. He makes the decisions. He can use Vice President Cheney the way he sees fit. And I'm comfortable that you select somebody who can step in on a moment's notice with experience, background, knowing what's going on. We can't have a kind of situation like we had in the 1940s with Harry Truman, where Harry Truman, thank God, turned out to be the kind of president he was, but apparently he didn't even know about the Manhattan Project. You can't have that any longer.
Governor Romney?
You let the president decide what the responsibilities of the vice president will be in his administration.
What would you decide?
What depends on the person, depends on the needs, depends on their capabilities, but I like a person that gives wide viewpoints and a wide array of issues. But let me tell you, it's been very popular lately for people across the country to be critical of the president and the vice president. And I know they make mistakes, but they have kept us safe these last 6 years. Let's not forget that.
Senator
George, I wouldn't delegate things to the vice president, but I would involve the vice president in a lot of things. But I think there's a key point here to look at. One is that Dick Cheney came in with a lot of experience. He came in a lot of experience on defense, foreign policy issues, and I think the president over-relied on that. I think Dick Cheney has done an admirable job. I think the president's over-relied upon that. I think you need somebody coming into the presidency that's had foreign policy experience, that's worked on these national and global issues so that they don't have to depend on the vice president as much. I think you should have a highly competent person as vice president that can step in at any time and can provide you high-quality information, reflection, wisdom, that's needed in that job, but not somebody that takes over the job.
Congressman Paul?
I certainly wouldn't support an amendment to change the role for the vice president. But there's no way to know exactly what goes on. But if you take perceptions from Washington, most people there behind the scenes think the vice president is more powerful than the president. Philosophically, I think this is the case. It's obvious that he represents the neoconservative viewpoint, and my objection is that that has been the rejection of the Republican Party platform and traditional conservatism, and I think this is where we have gone astray. We have drifted from our fundamental premises and the conservative values that this party used to
Congressman Hunter, you get the last word on this.
Thank you, George, it depends on the credentials of the president. I served in Vietnam, didn't do anything special, but I wore the uniform. I've been the chairman of the Armed Services Committee for the last 4 years, and my son has now done 2 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. I can look the American people in the eye and say, we're all in this together. So I would not share the role of commander-in-chief with a vice president. If you got other folks that have less background in national security, they're going to need to have a vice president that they rely on much more.
I need to move on now. The issue is taxes, always important in these caucuses and primaries. And the Iowa Republican Party has said the most important economic reform Congress can enact to win the fight against poverty is the fair tax. For our viewers, I want to explain what the fair tax is. It would eliminate the income tax, estate tax, payroll tax, and capital gains tax. It would eliminate all those and replace it with a 23% sales tax. That's the fair tax. Here's Mr. Yepsen with the question.
Governor Huckabee, this issue of tax policy, I see it as a real fault line inside your party. Fair tax, national sales tax, a flat tax, or make adjustments to the existing tax system. Where do you come down on this question?
I absolutely support the fair tax, and part of the reason is the current system is one that penalizes productivity. A recent poll showed that more Americans fear an audit of the IRS than they do getting mugged. And the reason is getting mugged isn't as painless as an audit from the IRS. And the reality is, if we could have the fair tax, you take $10 trillion parked offshore, bring it home. You rebuild the Made in America brand. You free up people to earn money, to work. You don't penalize them for taking a second job. You don't penalize them for investing. You don't penalize them for savings. Today, our tax system doesn't need a tap of the hammer, a twist of the screwdriver. It needs a complete overhaul. And what the fair tax does, it ends the underground economy. No more illegals, let me, if I may. No more illegals, no more gamblers, prostitutes, pimps, and dope dealers will be able to escape the tax code. It's the single greatest thing that will help this country have a revitalized economy.